Almost every gun is designed to be safe as possible for the shooter. Countless mechanisms have been designed to facilitate this and prevent the gun from firing when the shooter does not intend it to. However, in some guns, these safeties simply do not work due to poor or thoughtless design. Other guns might fire when the trigger is pulled but could be dangerous due to parts or gases being expelled rapidly towards the shooter. Here are some of the most dangerous guns for the shooter. Number 13. Taurus PT247. In theory, the Taurus PT247 should be a very safe pistol. In addition to the manual external safety lever, the PT247 includes a gun locking safety, a firing pin block, and a transfer bar safety, all to prevent accidental firing and to make the pistol drop safe. Unfortunately, almost none of these features work. Certain PT247s that were issued to the Brazilian police were found to fire without the trigger being pulled, resulting in a mass recall. Later on, the PT247 was included in a class action lawsuit that noted that the pistol could be fired by pulling the trigger with the safety on, or when dropped. Probably due to the terrible reputation of this pistol, Taurus no longer manufactures it. Number 12. Sten Gun. While the Sten was the primary submash gun for almost all of the Commonwealth for World War II and slightly beyond, it was notorious for being rather dangerous to the user. There are countless reports of Stens going off when dropped, or even uncontrollably emptying the mag and fully auto-fire when dropped. This often resulted in soldiers being wounded or even slayed as the submash gun spun around on the ground, flinging bullets in every direction. Some of these could be due to user error, as a Sten would fire if the bolt closed on a live round if the buttstock is tapped. In addition to the safety flaws, the Sten wouldn't always work when you wanted it to, which could add a level of danger on its own. Number 11. Blazer R93. The Blazer R93 is a high-end, expensive hunting rifle. What differentiates it from the rest on today's list is the extremely fast, straight pull bolt that allows the shooter to chamber a follow-up shot in less than a second. However, the straight pull locking mechanism can malfunction in ways that can cause the bolt to fly back into a shooter's face, causing severe injury. Official statements from Blazer state that this only happens with hand-loaded, overpressure ammunition. While there are conflicting reports as to whether the bolt malfunctions can happen with factory ammunition, the danger of getting a bolt in your face, which is typically not present on other bolt-action rifles, makes the R93 a very dangerous gun. Blazer may have recognized this and is attempting to sell the Blazer R8 instead of the R93, which features a far improved locking mechanism that is said to eliminate this problem. But do you even want to test the claim? Number 10. Winchester Model 1911 Shotgun. There is a long and rather convoluted story about how the Winchester 1911 SL semi-auto shotgun came to be. The long and short of it was that Winchester rejected Browning's A5 design because he wanted royalties and not just a one-time payment. He took the gun elsewhere, and the patents were so strict and so specific that Winchester had to produce a semi-auto shotgun that didn't infringe on any of them. The Winchester 1911 SL was the result of 10 years of building a semi-auto shotgun that avoided Browning's patents. We wouldn't say corners were cut, but compromises had to be made. For example, John Browning owned the patent on charging handles mounted to the bolt. Winchester needed to find a way to cock the shotgun without a charging handle. Winchester decided the best way to cock the gun was to have the user grab the barrel and push it rearward onto the action. This cocked the weapon and readied it to the fire. The barrel was textured to allow a grip because the motion was fairly awkward. This led to the gun being called the Widowmaker because of supposed stories of people bracing the gun on the ground and cocking it while leaning over the weapon. It's not necessarily one of the most dangerous guns because people are stupid, but because it's almost impossible not to violate Rule 2 when cocking the weapon. The awkward cocking method makes it impossible to charge the weapon while the weapon is pointed safely into the ground. You can point it essentially in the air, but bullets do come down. Do we understand the Widowmaker reference now? Number 9. Nambu Type 94. The Japanese were ahead of the curve when it came to firearm concepts. They abandoned the revolver for an auto pistol. They adopted the first Nambu pistol in 1904, an early semi-auto pistol chambered in an anemic cartridge. In 1935, they began to field the Nambu Type 94, which serves distinctly as one of the worst military pistols ever. The Type 94 not only used the weak 8x22mm round, but only held 6 of them, although you'd only need one to accidentally shoot yourself. The sear bar of the pistol sits outside of the pistol and converts trigger movement to lateral movement to free the hammer. A sear that is positioned on the outside of the pistol is a prime-time setup for accidental discharges. The terminology as of late has changed to negligent discharge but this is a firearm that could truly have an accidental discharge. The Type 94's manual safety could prevent this from occurring if used correctly, but still, it's a painfully awkward design. The firearm could discharge while holstered, which takes the challenges the famous Glock leg with Nambu leg. It's one of the most dangerous guns certainly ever used by a military force, but it's one of the few more dangerous to the user than the intended target. So Nambu Type 94 has the title of being possibly the worst pistol that saw service in World War II. In short, when cocked, the trigger bar protruded from the side of the weapon. This effectively acts as a second trigger, meaning the weapon could be fired accidentally in a multitude of ways, whether it be holstering, putting the weapon down, or simply accidentally touching this sidebar while trying to manipulate the safety. Number 8. Wamo Powermaster. Wamo, which is appropriately confused with Wamo, the Frisbee company, produced quite the dangerous little pistol. Wamo and Wamo are related companies, or were, when Wamo produced a variety of little single-shot 22 LR rifles and pistols. A few of their guns were mocked up to resemble Tommy guns. Another one looked like a dueling pistol of yesteryear. And then there is the Powermaster. Were the other Wamos dangerous guns? Well, we have no idea. After owning a Powermaster, we know that we can certainly say it's dangerous. The Powermaster is mocked up to resemble a sporting 22 LR in the vein of the Ruger MK series. It appears to be modeled after the Daisy 100 series airguns. It's big, has great grip ergonomics, and a great trigger. Why is it one of the most dangerous guns? Well, it has a tendency to just go off without the trigger being pressed. The manually cocked striker will often just release and fire by itself. Barely anything holds the weapon back from firing, and a slight jostle seems to make it go bang. We own one and don't trust anyone other than ourselves to even attempt to shoot it. It seems silly, and maybe time has eaten away at it, but we can't help but feel it's an internal design flaw. A toy company built it in a time when safety was rather relative. Still, what do you expect for $14.95? That was the going price way back yonder. Number 7. Colt Revolving Rifle. Usually innovation is awesome. Back in time, when most guns fired one round a minute, a repeater would be amazing. The Colt Revolving Rifle took Sam Colt's famous revolver design and upscaled it to rifle size. This allowed a rifleman to fire 5 to 6 rounds before needing to reload. That was quite the firing rate for 1855. The Colt Revolving Rifle descended from the Colt Ring Lever Carbine. Like its predecessor, it was both loved and loathed. It was also expensive. When the Civil War broke out, the North purchased a handful and they actually performed well. That didn't stop them from being dangerous guns, though. Revolver rifles are a pain. The gap between the cylinder and muzzle creates a space for burning gas to escape. It often burns the arm and requires a glove or gauntlet to fire like a traditional rifle. While a hassle, it was a compromise of the time. What made these dangerous guns was a phenomenon known as chain firing. Chain firing is whenever a cylinder goes off at the same time and turns your Colt revolving rifle into a grenade. This occurred when loose black powder was ignited and sent sparks into the other chambers, also full of black powder. The resulting explosion could seriously injure a rifleman and potentially slay them, with 1850s medicine being what it was. Needless to say, the advent of lever-action rifles and metallic cartridges kiboshed the revolving rifle for serious use. Number 6. The Armatix IP1 Smart Pistol. Smart pistol my ass. We're not declaring any gun smart until it reaches Judge Dredd levels of onboard computer. The Armatix IP1 Smart Pistol would supposedly usher in a new generation of safe defensive pistols. Only an authorized user could fire the weapon. That's what the promise was anyway. Keep in mind this was a 22 LR pistol, so not exactly a defensive caliber. Anyway, the dangerous part doesn't come from the weapon firing. In fact, it's the opposite. The system didn't work. A watch worn by the user unlocked the weapon, but it didn't work. In testing, the NRA found that pairing the watch to the gun could take up to 20 minutes. Once paired, it took 7 push-button commands and 12 seconds to be ready to fire. Beyond the technology sucking, the gun sucked. It often failed to fire and was not a reliable tool. The double-action trigger sucked, and the weapon had to be within 10 inches of the watch to work. It's not one of the most dangerous guns because it will fire. It's quite the opposite. This smart gun is one of the most dangerous guns because it won't fire when you need it to. That doesn't even begin to address the gun control concerns the firearm generates with the New Jersey state law prohibiting the sale of non-smart firearms once the first smart firearm is sold. Number 5. The Bazooka. One glaring problem with the infamous Bazooka was the massive flare it created when fired, which both exposed the shooter's position and shot dust, debris, and flames back at the soldier firing the weapon. Later versions of the bazooka included a backblast shield. The best thing about the bazooka was that it formed the basis for better weapons that came along later, not in the moment. Number 4. Lamar Grapeshot Revolver. The Lamar Grapeshot Revolver is another great idea for the battlefield that suffered from poor execution. Designed as a cavalry weapon late in the U.S. Civil War, the Lamar revolver stored 9 pistol rounds in a revolver setup, with an additional barrel and single shotgun shell in the middle. The user would toggle the movable firing pin to select which round they wanted to fire. While it was a great idea in theory, in practice the guns proved to be poorly made. Number 3. Krumlauf. The Krumlauf looks like a good idea, if only the physics from Elmer Fudd cartoons held true in real life. This gun was meant to shoot around corners with its curved barrel, between 30 and 45 degrees, and a mounted periscope sight on a fairly standard assault rifle. After much time and money spent tinkering with the design, it was deemed too expensive and unsuccessful to produce at a larger scale. Number 2. Mars Pistol. At the beginning of the 20th century, inventors tried to create a self-loading pistol. Eventually, the Colt M1911 would become the standard, but before that, many mistakes like the Mars pistol were made. The Mars was very complicated to operate and ejected used cartridges directly into the shooter's face. About 80 were made, after which the Mars quite rightly faded from the scene. Number 1. The Apache Pistol. Perhaps no other gun on today's list overpromises and underperforms like the Apache Pistol. This pistol appears to combine the effective ingredients of a knife, brass knuckles, and a small caliber revolver into a neat fold-out package. In practice, none of the 3 components of the weapon deliver. The brass knuckle component works well enough, but the knife is thin and flimsy on its hinge. The revolver, with virtually no barrel to speak of, is terribly underpowered and inaccurate. Additionally, because of the unguarded trigger, the user is likely to accidentally fire the weapon often. That's all for this video, folks. See you another time.